So is this the view? I'm trying to just make sure I have the context. This is a view of Nostr browser, but I already have an account set up. I either created default here or
Yeah.
imported from somewhere.
Yeah, so this is your account, my account, imported,
Okay.
and I can switch between different keys. I can add some other keys or generate new keys. So I've just generated this new profile. It's empty. It has no name or an avatar.
I know, I mean, I think at this point, Nostr.band is famous as like the go-to stats page for Nostr. And I've seen the things like the Nostr app.link and some of the new stuff you're doing with the, let's call it like the Nostr browser. So is it worth kind of, do you want to try to cover some of the updates on the other stuff? You want to focus just on kind of the browser stuff?
Yeah, well, so the first thing that's happening is we're working on a new version of the Nostr band itself, like the web front end of it, and it's gonna be open source and it's gonna work without like our custom middleware stuff. It's gonna work directly with our relay, so which kind of makes it more like you could plug in other relay into it and it would probably mostly work. So hopefully it's just gonna make it less reliant on our servers, and so someone else would be able to like maybe use it somewhere else. And hopefully we're gonna like, well, people can just go to new.nostr.band and check it out, but it's some things are still missing, but we're getting there. And then the Nostr app.link, the app management thing, we're just like filling it with features like you can zap, you can like things, you can publish other apps, not just Nostr apps, you can publish code repositories. And I think the thing we've just added like yesterday or today was an ability to like import application info from a PWA manifest file. So if your app is a PWA and has a manifest, then it's easier to import.
So how does that, is that a common way to develop today? Because I've played around with a few PWAs, but I've not kind of seen a lot that are sort of like production attempts. Is that something that is becoming more popular?
I don't think it's becoming more popular. Like the real PWA capabilities that browsers offer are like much wider than what's available for like a typical website. Like you can access more of the like background processing features, but most websites don't use it or don't need it. But the thing that essentially all you need to do to convert your website into a PWA is just add a manifest file where it says like the name of your app and the icon and description and stuff like that, and then a browser would suggest you to like install it or add it to your home screen or something, and and this way some of the Nostr apps have been like enhanced for people to be able to like add them to the homepage of their mobile phones, smartphones. And so then if you've done that already, you could just as well reuse that data to like publish the app info on Nostr. And then I would say that PWA manifest files are a good place to like put the same info on the website itself, like the same info that you put on Nostr, describing the app, like which kinds it can handle and where a user should be redirected to view like a profile or a note or something. And then the like Nostr ID and other of an app could also be specified in the PWA. And so you would have like two-way connection between them. And so like if you have an Nostr ID of an app, you can like find it on Nostr and check out, I don't know, like likes, zaps of the app or something. But then if you have a URL, you can still like download the manifest file and get the Nostr ID of the app from there and like go to Nostr and check things out. So
I want to make sure I get all of, because I think we're touching on a bunch of different topics here, and I want to make sure I kind of see the whole thing together. So so PWAs are, kind of a standard that are out there that anybody can use and basically make a website feel like an app, right? And then you're talking about like app IDs on Nostr. So is that like a PWA?
I'm talking about like being able to just reuse the manifest files as a place to put some additional stuff, not the stuff standardized by PWA spec if there is one.
Right.
And,
but if you've got like a PWA, are you trying to enable people to be able to pull in separate apps, or kind of in that like a catalog of different PWAs that are available to do different functions in Nostr?
Well, hopefully all the apps and web apps eventually in the future will be Nostr apps. So that's like the overall direction. And so they will probably have to announce something about themselves connecting like their web representation with Nostr somehow. So that's probably gonna be the place where that happens, or it could be like the PWA manifest file. And then like if we like connect this to Nostr browser idea, there are like Nostr focused apps like snort.social or Habla News or something, but then there are like apps which are not strictly Nostr apps, like Web Wallet or anything else, and it might still be like one of the things that you're using with like that is a part of your Nostr experience somehow.
Right.
And so
when
we
looking
think
at
about
the PWA ecosystem in Nostr, are you sort of, what are the goals? Are you imagining that you want to make it easy to write websites that can be, write once and be deployed across kind of both popular mobile OSs, or is it around being able to pull in different app experiences from maybe the code's hosted on a relay or somewhere else? Or is it like something about, kind of more of the censorship resistance that the web may offer compared to app stores? Or what's sort of the thinking or kind of motivation or goal?
Yeah, well, so the idea of publishing an app description on Nostr is like, okay, Nostr is a data sort of platform where we can send some queries to these relays and filter stuff based on our criteria. And so the Nostr app.link is built on that, like all the app descriptions are stored on Nostr. And but then there are like a couple dozen Nostr apps, but there are like many millions of PWAs out there, and there's no like a way to search through them. You have to like use Google essentially, and if you find a good website that supports PWA, then you can add it to your home screen. And then so like if eventually all web apps or all apps become some in one way or another Nostr apps, then it should be pretty easy to like first publish your PWA on Nostr. That's why like there's this PWA import feature on Nostr app.link now. And then they should probably also have like two-sided connection. If I see something on Nostr, a description of an app, I should be able to see that that's the website, and the website says, yes, that's me. So that's a sort of like the same as Nepo 5 works, where you have an identifier.
So you can register, that's trying to confirm that a certain domain is the one that defines that app on Nostr.
Yeah, and so then the Nostr browser, while you browse, there isn't, and we're gonna make a demo of that thing, but like you can add some Nostr apps to your, let's say, home screen of the browser. But then why don't you add like google.com on your homepage, or DuckDuckGo, or anything else like that? And then the information in those PWAs is very useful there, because now you have like the name of the app and the icon, etc. And so the PWA manifest files are like on my mind recently, so that's why I'm thinking about them. And well,
you're talking about all of these like websites that are already PWAs that might not be Nostr apps. And I don't think I realized that that was a focus. Is that something that you're trying to do?
It's not really, it's not really a focus now, but just something we've done recently. And so if you think about how mobile OS experience works, there are no URLs there. There are just icons of apps which you click on and they pop up. And then there's like an app store, just a catalog of stuff with a search. And then if you open Chrome browser, that's a very different experience in terms of like how this stuff is addressed, how it's discovered, what your like homepage looks like you open a browser, what do you see? You have to first open a new tab. There's like this idea of an empty space that you have to fill with something.
Yep.
And in Nostr browser, I'm leaning toward like making it look more like a mobile OS experience, so that people wouldn't have to bother with URLs and sort of, let's call it more older like concept,
right.
Or
but within the
framework.
Nostr browser idea, it sounds like when you open it up, you may have a discovery surface that enables you to show off or showcase some of the best apps that are written in this way.
Yeah, yeah. Right now there are just a couple dozen apps, so you can just like see them all there.
Yeah.
And but then the farther we go, the more personalized we will have to make like this experience based on web of trust, essentially based on stuff like these are the apps that people you're following are using, something like this.
Right.
And then so you will probably not wish to see like a million apps there, and without like the centralized moderator that is gonna like make sure that the proper descriptions are assigned and things like that.
Right.
You can't also make a good like catalog. It's just a bunch of stuff. And so so we are probably gonna put some good apps that we think are worth any user's attention like by default on their home screen.
Right.
But then they will be able to add new stuff there. They would be able to add any website like on their homepage. If they need to open google.com and have it like as a button there, they would be able to do that. And
if they're doing that within the Nostr browser, are they storing like a configuration that gets stored to relays that they can sort of pick up from anywhere, or other people might be able to use?
I think we should like have that info stored on relays somehow, but the question is whether it should be public or not. Like there's NIP 89 that part of it is like relay recommendation, app recommendations. So the idea would be that the simplest application of it here would be to say that if you pin an app to your like home screen, then we just add this app to your recommendation list, and then other people see it. That's probably where we are gonna like start with this. But then you can also have like different approaches here. You could put some app list into a private encrypted Nostr event so that you could just have access to it on other devices but not make it publicly readable. And then some like apps on your screen could be just like private if you don't want to announce them. So it's not like clear at the moment where the like final balance here would be, but the capability is there, and it's a very important one, like to recommend an app on Nostr, because that's what is going to enable this web of trust thing of like these are the apps that your friends are using. Right.
Well, if we back it up though a little bit, when we think about the Nostr browser, are we thinking about it as like a key store and management, and then that key gets used in various web apps without having to take a risk of pasting your key into different places? Like, is that one of the motivating factors, or are you thinking about like new ways to pull components from across different apps into a single one, or have more like micro apps? Or how do you think about the motivation or the purpose behind the Nostr browser?
Yeah. So the obvious problem that you're gonna have on mobile is key storage across apps. So you either have to like paste your keys on every website in Chrome browser, or you're gonna have to like install special Kiwi browser on Android. Not sure how that is on iOS. And then add the Olby extension or something like this there. So it's not very convenient, but like kind of solvable. So yeah, the key storage is like the basic thing that you have to support if you're gonna call yourself a Nostr browser. And we are doing it, well, properly, as I think it should be, where the keys are stored by the native code, not the like JS, like JavaScript and sort of remote code cannot touch the keys, and keys are stored in an encrypted form on disk. So, and there's
that's
like
done
very
within
little.
the PWA?
No. So the Nostr browser has like a native code part of it, which is custom written, and the key storage is written.
So you send that to the app stores. You have to publish that.
We're gonna
like
we're gonna have to send it to app stores.
But its main function is that it's gonna manage keys across the PWAs that people load into it. Well,
that's the main function that it supports right now, because it's pretty limited in what it can do. Yeah, and then I would say that the more like interesting features of it are like being able to switch between apps and being able to like understand where. Well, I guess we should just make a demo and not stop stop imagining
get out of
it.
the theory and actually just
go to practice. I wonder. That's the.
Do I need to do something to enable the share? Or...
No, I think I've got it. Here we go. That's me. Let me launch it. Can I go somewhere else? Okay, let's put it here. So here's the screen.
Can you blow it up a little bit?
Can I? What?
Is there a way to extend it to make the emulator?
No, this is like the emulator of the mobile app. So it has to be like small, but.
So this is the Android mobile app for Nostr browser, right? And it's not in the Play Store, but it will be coming soon?
Yes, but as you can imagine, there is a bug that I'm discovering right now, like in front of you. So
yeah, perfect. It's real.
Yeah, so here is the thing. You have some apps at the bottom, and somehow all icons are...
So is this the view? I'm trying to just make sure I have the context. This is a view of Nostr browser, but I already have an account set up. I either created default here or imported from somewhere.
Yeah, so this is your account, my account, imported. Okay. And I can switch between different keys. I can add some other keys or generate new keys. So I've just generated this new profile. It's empty. It has no name or an avatar. And so it starts with some apps, some pinned apps. Here they are, Nostr Band, Snort, things like that. And you've got this like lower taskbar with pinned stuff. And then there is this content area where stuff like trending profiles will go, or your contact list or things like that. And well, right now there are just like all apps from the published on Nostr and just trending profiles from Nostr Band. And then you can launch some app, like let's launch nostr.band. And so
Do you have ways to share from Nostr.band? Can I share into another app?
So when you say share, you mean like, so let's say we've opened this no KYC account in Nostr.band. And then there is this menu here that kind of understands that we're looking at this in pub. So this part is like very crude and it's just in the process of development. But the buttons in this menu are interesting. So not only there are like close tab and unpin app things, but there's also a way to open this profile with some other app. And so now we can open Nostr, let's say, and check out the same profile here. I'm not sure if why he's anonymous here, because it's no KYC there, but anyway. And let's see.
But in the browser, the Nostr browser, we were logged in with Brugeman, right? So now, is it passing those keys to Nostr, or we're starting a new key session?
No, it can. Well, right now we've chosen the different keys, not my keys.
I see.
Sorry. Let's choose mine. Everything is a bit slow in the emulator, and let's go to Nostr.band again. So you still have to like click login button. Well, I've been logged in here already, but you would still have to log in as Brugeman, and I can like follow people and do like all the stuff that you normally do.
I see. And now you're
with
actually
the browser
doing
extension
it on your own account, right?
Yeah. So that I'm doing it on my keys now. So we can open this guy in another app. And so this list of apps is not just like all the apps out there, but the ones that know how to show a profile of some. So it's like filtering them based on NIP89. And
so does NIP89 specify which features a given app can support? Is that the main purpose of it?
Well, the main purpose when it started was to have a way to recommend an app. And then not just like an app period, but an app for some specific event kind. So like I would recommend this app to view kind 0, like profiles, or kind 1 notes, or
right.
Kind 30023, the long notes, something like this. Yeah, so again, like so this is the satellite client here. And so this thing works like a browser would. You have all those tabs like opened, and you can switch between them pretty fast. And you can also zap this guy like from the browser itself, even if like the web app wouldn't support it.
Right.
And or you can, there's also like a context menu when I like long tapped on a node, and it can detect that there's a link to a node, and you can like try to zap that specific node or like, open that specific node somewhere else in another app. Let's say Primal. I wonder if it works. The problem with NIP89 is that like application publishers, authors do not really update the app description. So some apps might not do what they are supposed to do.
Right. I wonder about the style of, what we're looking at here is a browser that does key management and then can launch a bunch of different apps that were built, kind of web apps that were built for it, right?
Yeah.
For the web. But it seems like a lot of these apps are kind of built sort of as traditional websites. So not really built with this kind of composable, pluggable architecture that Nostr can enable. So one of the things that, at least when I'm hearing about like a Nostr browser, I'm wondering like, can a Nostr browser help define a new way for apps to be able to sort of talk to each other or participate with each other.
Let me stop sharing for a second. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Is that something that you think about a lot, or is that not one of the current goals of what you're doing here?
So, can you please repeat the last part? So, you mean should we define new ways to compose apps, something like this, right?
Yeah, I guess like the idea of an app browser, I think, makes sense, but the only thing the app browser currently can do is showcase apps that exist, right? But apps that exist today were built without the knowledge that such a Nostr app browser would exist or could exist. So in a sense, I feel like part of a Nostr browser has the potential to redefine what an app ecosystem looks like and almost like focus more on these micro app ideas instead of needing all apps to be fully, independent silos. They could actually be micro apps that serve very specific functions. Like this is going to help you create your profile or edit your profile. This is going to help you do search or discovery. This is going to help you consume feeds or participate in discussions. This one's going to help you DM. And so each of those is like a function that gets rewritten by every developer building kind of a full web app in a silo. And part of what I kind of hope for the future, I don't know if the Nostr browser is the right way, but what I hope is that somebody or maybe a collective of people end up focusing and building the very best DM system, and then everybody who wants to do a DM system could actually just use that one, or if you want to do a different one, you can do a different one. But the Nostr browser then is orchestrating like which DM system is the default, or which one do I want to switch to because it has some different, maybe I do a different kind of language that's not supported by the big one, but there's a separate project. So that kind of like composability and kind of the ability to manage micro apps is, I guess, one of the things that excites me, though I don't know if that's like a goal and just too far off, or kind of what you're thinking on that.
I think that's the right direction where it should arrive eventually. And right now there are some things that we can currently do that to like implement some aspects of like the vision that you've described. So for instance, when I click on a profile and I am presented with a list of apps that can open it, I can select that, click the checkbox to remember that's my selection, and then if I use like nostr.me to view profiles, then next time when I view a profile, I'm presented with nostr.me without like this extra step of selecting an app. So this kind of injects this piece of nostr.me feature set into like my Nostr browsing experience.
Right.
And that's one thing. Then for DMs, there are like apps.
Have you talked to a team like Nostr to see sort of if they're interested in that that kind of composable future? Like, is that one of their goals or hopes, or is that
the idea is that there is already a screen for viewing profiles. So, like, there are a lot of other screens, but this screen, if the user chooses to like use this screen for viewing profiles, then we can use that one. So then eventually somebody is gonna build an app that just does profile viewing only and nothing else, and it can still be used for that specific case. So then you can probably do things like we can put a send a DM menu item, like in the context menu or in tab menu, and then you can choose an app through which you're gonna send DMs, and you can remember that selection, and then every time you like decide to send a DM to someone, the DM, your preferred DM app will open. And then again, like it might have other features out there, but if there is a way to like direct users directly to the DMing experience, then you could use only that part of the overall app. And so that's like the thing that we are gonna start with, and then
advocating for the developer ecosystem to build those types of things, or are those already? Because I haven't seen a lot of them myself, and I feel like it's hard to show how good it can be until somebody does it. But I don't know if that's something like you're talking to existing developer ecosystem about this, or like you're building some of the first ones yourselves, or you want to kind of place the call out to see who's
when you say that I'm building some of them, you mean the micro apps, like super small apps
we were just talking
focused
about
on some.
the DM thing. Like, is somebody? I've seen lots of apps that all have a DM function. I haven't seen anybody who's just built the DM function as like a micro app. So do you think
there are a couple of apps? Yeah, there's.
Okay.
There's. Let me.
So where they've built like a web app that only does the function of like add your keys, and now you have your DM.
Yeah, exactly. So there's below water.
Oh right. Okay.
.dino.dev thing. At least this is the one I know. And then there was like another one that probably died, but it was very promising. Something with the chat word in it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the name. But anyway, like the Nostr might be somewhat of a good example because it's like mostly focused on viewing profiles.
Right.
And then the Pinster or Lister.lol could be other good examples that because they're focused on lists only. So I would say I don't really need to advocate that because there are very many apps popping out these days, and I can follow all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Every week I discover new ones, and so people figured out themselves that you can't like build every feature of Nostr into your app. That's just way too much work first, and then there are already good apps that do that, so you just redoing that same work if you're doing that. And so people are, I guess, okay with that idea that you can just select some segment and try to like conquer it. But there is no glue at the moment, and there are like a Nostr browser, like a common infrastructure and like some connecting UI that tries to like connect all of that. And for desktop, there are a couple of projects. The most interesting one is nostrnet.work, I think. Nostrnet.work.
So that's a desktop browser kind of with similar goals?
It's a website that tries to do like this similar thing on desktop using iframes. So if you go to nostrnet.work right now, you can check it out. Well, maybe I could share the screen and just show it to you. Yeah.
I think not set up to do web browsing in this.
Okay.
This configuration.
Okay. Can you see it?
I can. Yep.
So here it is, nostrnet.work, and Ifan is building it, and I guess he's like live building it because it has changed since the last time I viewed it half an hour ago. So there's like this list of apps here. Let's try launching one. Okay, it's asking for my keys. I'm not gonna give it to it, but so it just launched an iframe, and there's this app inside it, and there's this small like toolbar at the top, and you can launch different things with this toolbar. You can switch between them pretty easily.
Right.
And what else can we do?
But still, these are like when we're switching through these, we're switching through kind of fully baked app experiences.
Yeah. And that's the problem.
Yeah,
that's the problem with. Sorry,
I think our timing is off.
Yeah.
I was just saying, I think part of the thing that I'm thinking about is people, because this glue doesn't exist, people build independent, siloed, branded apps that kind of try to do a lot. And even when you have like something like Blowater, which I've heard is good for kind of DM, so like you're saying, but it's still like a branded app that has a specific function and purpose, and so you go to it when you want to do that. Versus, I don't think it's designed to be plugging into this glue and just being like the best DM. So I almost think about isn't the intense architecture of Android sort of like this, where you could plug
Yeah.
in different handlers for different functions, but you're not constantly being you're not necessarily choosing each time, or you don't, it doesn't sort of, it has good defaults, and then you can change the defaults, and you have some place where you can see all of the intents that you have configured, and you can switch out and do different intents, right? I'm sorry, I'm not an Android expert, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, so the NIP 89 like infrastructure that describes an app is like a small step towards like something like Android intents. And what's missing right now is the ability to actually describe like the action that is going to happen. Like if right now the action is to view like a profile or a note, but then if I wanna, let's say, share it, like I wanna share or repost this Nostr ID, or if I wanna edit my own profile, which screen out there is for me. So this thing is missing there, so we're gonna like have to figure it out. And then the activities on Android, they're still kind of, well, yeah, they kind of work that way, and most people know that they exist because of the share feature. Like if you want to share something, there's a pop-up that says choose an app through which you're gonna share it, and that's basically like the only screen that there's also like view screen. When you try to view a URL, it's gonna choose an app that matches that URL. And I think there are way too many like unanswered questions there in this like vision of having small components that sort of pop up, and you don't even know which app that is. It's just some piece of code that somehow was chosen by your Nostr browser, I guess. So it's not like clear how the browser should choose it, how the user should evaluate whether that was a good choice or not, like how should the options be presented. And it's hard enough to like already to like read an app description and for a user to try to like, if the browser is like forcing a choice on you, that sort of already adds some friction. So I'm trying to like with this thing to go do something useful with what we already have, with the ecosystem we already have, and like slowly move towards a direction that adds all those new capabilities, discovering with all the people like on Nostr what and how we should approach those like ideas. Because
is it a set of ideas that people are generally discussing? Like, do you find it, at least within maybe your groups of developers?
No, I don't. I don't think. I don't think it's like a priority on anyone's list. So because the right now the default like Nostr experience is either browser or like a mobile app, and like everyone's building like a web app or a mobile app, which means it's sort of like has certain landing pages from where you have to like drive the user through the experience, assuming that it might be an absolutely new person that has never understood Nostr and has landed on your app, etc. And if we ever get to a place where we have like reusable components, micro apps that are just like sort of pieces of code, maybe even unbranded, and you might not even need a brand if there is like a built-in monetization layer that somehow splits the revenue to you, then maybe you don't even need a brand. I'm not like sure how that's gonna work, but so yeah, then you wouldn't be building all this extra stuff aside from like the code that does the actual thing.
Right.
And
that's why I wonder though, like, is there, you know, the whole Zaps kind of iOS, you know, review process, I think points to at least one kind of challenge that the web solves really well. Is like nobody really is going to, you know, say you can't run Zaps on the web. But so basically any native app that has its own, you know, roadmap, features, product, UX is going to be sort of probably limited by what it can do in the Apple ecosystem. And maybe similarly in Google Play. I don't know it as well or as closely. But I'm wondering, like, could it be that the the desire to be able to support Zaps in better ways is enough of a motivating factor to help kind of help these micro app coordination take off? Because I think, like, the biggest challenge I think for web apps is that the pasting keys and stuff is a mess and kind of scary, probably appropriately scary. But that also means then web apps are not typically going to be as strong as kind of Zap focused, like more serious accounts with money involved. It's going to be less likely to use. And then of course, when the app stores enforce their policies, they can decide to shut off Zaps. So to me, is Zaps a compelling enough reason that it could be focused here to solve that specific problem, or is that just not a priority compared to the other stuff people are doing?
So I agree that the Zaps is like a built-in feature. Well, the zapping content is forbidden on iOS, and they somehow have it connected to some of their policies, specific clauses in their policies, and those policies are gonna change, and any app that has to comply will have to deal with that, probably removing Zaps. And our earlier discussions before that about the life of after app stores, what's it gonna look like? Well, it's gonna look like so that a central app store wouldn't be able to block you from using an app or a feature. So how do we get there? I don't know. Maybe a Nostr browser will help us get there. Could Nostr browser be itself subject to the same policies if there is some way to link a Lightning wallet to it, and then it sort of injects zapping into it? You can then zap anything that you're browsing. Is that gonna be a problem? I'm not sure yet. And I wouldn't say that Zaps are the core offering of Nostr browser experience. It's just part of it. I don't even have the idea of what it is a Nostr browser experience. Right now, it doesn't support Wallet Connect. So to zap someone from a mobile phone, you have to open up a separate app.
Right.
That's not very convenient, so I don't use it too often. It's just the being able to zap someone from in any app is just one of those ideas of this interoperability that you can have when you control the browser itself. The problem with the nostrnet.org website, which lets you open other apps in an iframe, is that you cannot inject custom stuff into that iframe. You cannot enhance that app. You cannot add those context menus and suggest different additional features, cross apps features. And when you control the browser, you can do different interesting things that might lead to something new. For me, being able to switch between apps to view the same the same event, or being able to, if your app does not support an event, being able to still click on a link and be presented with apps that do support it and immediately get there without even searching for those apps on App Store or something. It just tells you that here are those apps, you've never seen them before, but they support viewing this kind of event, and you can open it now and use it. And then if you like it, you can pin it. So there's no clear understanding of there's something that's the biggest feature of Nostr browsing experience. It's very limited right now. Right. And there's also not many users of it, so there's not that much of a feedback loop. hopefully we're
Well, that's
going
what I'm
to be able
wondering
to launch it soon.
is there like a value prop? Like I think the value props you're describing of being able to switch across apps in the ecosystem, to me feels like a fairly advanced type of user who like knows about the ecosystem and knows about multiple apps they might want to use for different functions. And I wonder, do you see Nostr browser initially as a very advanced type of user experience, or do you sort of imagine there might be kind of simplifications or kind of new user onboarding that it could?
I would say that so if you look at how people interact with Nostr, like new people that are not like old advanced users, but new users, many of them do not like have no idea that there's anything aside from like Demos app they're using. Demos, and that's it. That's Nostr for them. They've never heard of anything else. And so why they end up in Demos is because like it's the most popular thing that gets mentioned everywhere. Like for iOS user, if you ask about Nostr, you're probably gonna be recommended a Demos app. That's like the reason. And thinking about value prop here, like with Nostr browser idea, I would say is a little bit like early today, because we don't really know what onboarding can be built into it for like a brand new user that doesn't know what Nostr is. And and then there is no like feedback loop from advanced users who would tell us that this is the thing that we admire the most, etc. So right now we're just like trying to come up with a minimal set of features that like don't break and deliver some consistent like experience, and then from there we'll see. So right now all the education of new users happens like by other people on Nostr, and all those people are doing, they're like recommending Damos for iOS and Amethyst for Android, and that's it. And why don't they recommend like a million other web apps out there? Well, probably because of all those different things that you mentioned. Like maybe it's not very convenient to paste your insec there, and maybe everyone is on Damos anyway, and Damos works great, and until recently there were even Zaps there. So even the most advanced people do not really use multiple apps. They do not really have like a setup Nostr environment where they do some things here and some things there. And the nostr.net.work website is like one attempt to like implement some command center idea. I just think that the more we move into that direction, the more we build something that works like a kind of Nostr browser that allows you to like not just use one app, be it Demos or Snort or something, but like connect stuff. Then we'll see how the community goes from there. Like if it's not good enough
so then
for anyone to switch,
to me like
then
I was gonna say it feels to me like it's a very advanced type of user then who would be an early adopter of a Nostr browser, because you're trying to manage a lot across the ecosystem instead of like just get involved in the ecosystem to start. Is that a fair characterization, you think?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if the user has to be advanced. An advanced user knows what an npub is. An advanced user like can copy the npub, then go to another app, then somehow paste the npub into the URL and press enter and do stuff like that you have to do without a Nostr browser. So like Nostr browser would let a non-advanced user use Nostr across different apps without like knowing what this thing is that they're dealing with, what this event ID thing, how do you like find the same event in the different apps, etc. So I think if there is like 1% of advanced Nostr users that do use different apps, then with Nostr browser, 10 times more people, maybe 10% of everyone, could like realize that, okay, now I don't have to do all this crazy copy pasting searching stuff, and it works. And then maybe, yeah, I can now use several apps. So that's like my general idea. Yeah, it's the use of more than one app is probably an advanced idea for many people, but then not having this glue and not having to like juggle URLs and pubs and events does lower the bar, and hopefully much more people will be able to use more apps, more than one. Yeah.
Right. So it sounds like it's a little bit agnostic about being a very advanced user or a very beginner user, that you're sort of saying.
Well, we definitely don't aim to like only serve super advanced users. I'm not even sure what features they need. On Nostr, an advanced user is someone who knows like how to do command line things. So
okay.
They've got their own tools. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I guess like, yeah, I mean, I think all of the ideas that are wrapped up inside the Nostr browser and key management and, you know, the way it manages across apps and micro apps, I think it all sounds very exciting and seems like it would be part of how the future has to look at some point. But I think the path to get there is highly uncertain. And so I wonder if there's ways to get more certainty about what that path might look like, or like to kind of galvanize a hypothesis or two around like, hey, we want to try to find, you know, this type of user. Maybe it's a new user. Maybe it's a user who, you know, speaks a language that's not well supported by existing ones, or, you know, maybe there's some other characteristic of a type of user who would really get value from the abilities that the Nostr browser enables. Because I worry a little bit if the Nostr browser is just kind of a collection of other apps. Like, why, you know, I think people starting out are just going to go to those other apps if they know they want them. And if they don't know they want them, how do they know they want, you know, the Nostr browser as the starting point? Versus if the Nostr browser works with, I don't know, like languages that work in right to left. It's just like the very best way to use Nostr with languages that are right to left languages. You know, then maybe it's at least a underserved population of, you know, there's at least millions of people in the world. Maybe there's thousands on Nostr who already run into that problem, and this could be like go-to for that kind of niche group, and then can sort of be discovered all the other stuff that you can do to expand from there. So somehow like finding, you know, it in a sense it feels so general, it's so useful in so many ways, but it's hard to reach the people who will be the very first ones to say like, oh, this really solves this hair on fire problem I have, or like I really desperately need this thing or want this thing, so I'm going to opt in and like be along as part of the ride. And that one feels like it could use some sharpening to make sure you can connect with the audience that would be most appropriate.
Yeah, I do not have a great answer here, and mostly I was like postponing thinking seriously about it until we publish some early releases of it and get at least some serious amount of feedback, because like it's way too uncertain to try to guess how people are going to react on it, etc. Right. But one of the ideas that I think might be interesting here is the sort of emerging apps that are related to like marketplaces of different kinds. So like ostrich.work, I guess Jeff is working on it, or like all those DMVs that Pablo is working on with the
right. That's the data vending machines.
Right. Yeah, the data vending machines with the automated service providers, and this Nostr being used as a marketplace, as an order book. Right. So there's no like leading feature-full client that does let you interact with the marketplaces. There are mostly no marketplaces on Nostr, essentially. Right. Just several like prototypes. And I would say that we can sort of develop the Nostr browser, and those types of different marketplaces can develop in parallel. And
right.
When the real money is involved, like when you're going to buy some service from a marketplace, you're gonna have to like think about whether you should trust this guy that you're going to transact with. And then you're probably gonna think about like, well, maybe like how do you do that like in normal web? You're probably gonna Google that guy and think about like, can I get more info on that company or on that service provider? And maybe some reviews on like third-party websites and etc.
Right.
So on Nostr, in Nostr browser, that's gonna be like trivial. You don't have to like Google it. You just, all the information is connected on Nostr, so you can just switch between apps essentially to figure out if this person, to look at the trust signals that might be useful. So right now, since the only really popular use case for Nostr is social Twitter clone thing, and that's the only one, and there are essentially two apps. It just means that the vast majority of people that are coming in are just there for that experience, like for scrolling through Twitter style feed and for liking and zapping. And that's fine. And maybe those people just need only that one app because they didn't care about all the other stuff that Nostr could like provide. They didn't come for it. And, but then if like really different uses of Nostr start to get popularity, then someday it will mean that Nostr is not just social networking, it's something else. It's already more than one app. And so it will sort of, I guess, normalize the idea that there are more than one thing there. And like if your iPhone had like only one app, then you wouldn't really need like an app store or anything else like that. You just open your phone and here it is, everything. But then there are like 4 million apps in app stores now. You cannot like operate in that environment without like infrastructure for finding apps, like publishing apps, switching between apps with those intents and action activities like on Android. So Nostr browser is definitely not for like the 99% of people currently on Nostr who are just tweeting, noting. They just didn't come here for all those other types of experiences. They just came for a Twitter alternative. And we'll see. Because those other use cases, they're much earlier than even the demos and like, let's say, Amethyst experiences. Like those are early, but everything else is like really like super baby steps. And that's like the ecosystem where Nostr browser would be of use, not just for advanced user, but like for any user.
I
well,
guess we kind of
at least that's how I'm thinking about it.
To evolve a little bit so that there's more apps or more diversity of experiences that people
that's essentially the idea, that we should sort of develop in parallel, and we are just too early to have any good hypothesis about like how this thing can take off. And because like this thing is going to take off when several apps take off, like when several use cases take off. It cannot take off if there is just one use case. You don't have to switch if there's just one thing you can do with the protocol. But if you can do like 2 things or 3 things or 5 things, then you do need this infrastructure. Until then, you definitely don't need a browser.
Are there other use cases you've seen that you've been excited about, or things that you've heard of people working on that you think might be kind of some upcoming breakthroughs?
Well, unfortunately, I can't say I see any upcoming breakthroughs because like the mass adoption of something is a mystery for me. So that's but the interesting stuff is probably the most interesting one is stuff like DVM, data vending machine, or other ways to like connect AIs or user with AI. And because like stuff that Pablo is working on is interesting, but imagine, well, his first DVM use case was to transcribe a podcast, right? If I remember correctly. Yep. So now imagine that in Nostr browser, you can browse the websites, the YouTube, let's say, and you just long tap on a video and it offers you a contextual menu where it says, let's transcribe it using the, let's transcribe it, you click it, and then DVM request is sent and someone transcribes your podcast. That's like pretty interesting and exciting thing. Like, well, connecting to your previous question of like, who is going to adopt it? Well, I would say that the Nostr browser for me is a success when I just like remove Google Chrome from my phone and just use Nostr browser. And I'm not even sure we should call it a Nostr browser and add the word Nostr to it, because like it looks like it's just a web experience with Nostr integrated into sort of every website. When I say that I want to share this URL or the page that I'm looking at, it would suggest me like posting it on Nostr and with the kind one event. When I want to like translate a web page into another language, it should be probably a data vending machine request that asks for some service providers to like translate this page, etc. So the like it's going to be a success when some people start like saying that they no longer use Chrome and they just use this thing that like lets them do the same things that Chrome does, but most of them are implemented through Nostr, through those interesting new marketplace, decentralized marketplace like decentralized things. And then hopefully some things it's gonna do even better. I'm not sure which ones yet, but that's like my own criteria of what it should achieve.
Do you have any kind of asks for the ecosystem around things people could be doing to contribute to the vision of what you want to achieve with the Nostr browser? Like, are there certain kind of people who are developing one thing you'd like it to integrate a new nib or be used in a slightly different way, or anything at all that you think would help sort of accelerate the path to success for a Nostr browser?
I don't have any specific ask, because like the roadmap for this thing is so obvious and so big, like without even like touching some unresearched, unknown areas of like which require new NIPs or something like this. So I would just say that people shouldn't focus too much on the Twitter social networking experience, and just don't. I would just encourage them to like try different things, and it's hard to get them adopted, like to get them out there, because most of the discussion focuses around zaps and short notes. But I would say there's more value there, because like I'm not sure if Nostr short noting experience, social networking experience is like 5x or 2x or 10x better than what you get on Twitter. Aside from like the Nostr being non-censorable, or at least harder to censor, like a typical Twitter user will not see a difference. And like Primal guys are doing a very great job of like re-implementing Twitter experience on Nostr. And that's like a good strategy if you like try to just present an alternative, and if it's like good enough, maybe someone is gonna switch. That's good, but then will they? Like, why would they switch from Twitter to Nostr like a typical user? And even if they did, is there like a business model there? All those things are not clear, and they are popular, but nobody knows, I think, how to like earn anything from there, or how to build a business there, which business model there is gonna be. And so other areas, marketplaces, are, I think, much more interesting, because you cannot build a marketplace from scratch, because it requires too much of an effort to like get it off the ground, the chicken and egg problem. But on Nostr, you have all those users already, and I think building a marketplace on Nostr might be like easier in some sense.
Yep.
And there is usually like a pretty obvious business model there for like people participating, not necessarily for like the developers, but
right.
So yeah, what I wanted to say is just encourage people to build different things on Nostr and not worry too much about like trying to make a 10th copy of Twitter.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you think about sort of balancing the priorities of what you and the team you're kind of building with want to accomplish? Like, obviously Nostr browser is a big effort right now, but you also have, the Nostr.band, the search and stats and web of trust stuff. Like, are you sort of doing all of them at once, or do you sort of sequentially improve each, or how do you think about sort of kind of allocating your time and the team's time?
Many pieces of the things, like many things that we created before, like search or stats or APIs for stats or stats page, global statistics. And I think many of those things are like pieces of that we're going to connect into one nice experience with Nostr browser. So like there's gonna be search there that works with the Nostr band relay that will let you find stuff straight inside the app. And there are gonna be like a way to view statistics on a profile that you're viewing in one of the apps, or statistics on a node that you're viewing. So those are not like disjoint products or APIs or something. Those are going to like converge on something in a single product. There's not enough resources to really like develop all of them like every day. And then there's also not very much like demand for some of those things. Before that, I was like more of had an approach of trying lots and lots of different things to see if some of them are useful or valuable. And most of the times the answer is not really, or not right now. So you kind of I kind of end up with a bunch of interesting, promising things that nobody uses.
Right.
And so like, since nobody is really using them, I'm not going to develop them right now and just have them in mind as a piece of a puzzle that I'm going to use a bit later. So right now the Nostr browser is a priority, and plugging all this stuff into it is a priority to see what we can make of it. And like the problem with the maybe centralized, like we are a centralized provider of search or an API for stats or something like this, is that like the creating demand for it is hard on Nostr, because the whole ethos of Nostr is decentralization, and then if you're like relying on a single provider, that might be a problem. So people are not like interested in that, even if it would be useful for them. And when hopefully in the future we get like several search providers or several statistics providers, and we maybe converge on some NIPs for that. We have a NIP for search, for instance, already, and then maybe we come up with NIPs for other things too. Then probably we'll see more adoption among clients, because at least they've got some like choice to present to users. And then probably the demand for it will increase. Right now it's out there, and they are used very little. People just come to Nostr.band if they want to use search, and that's how it works at the moment.
I think that the Nostr browser is, I think, an exciting vision for the future. So, I'd want to follow along and see like who does it serve and who sort of has the biggest needs that can be served with this new architecture, just to get, to sort of identify a user type that really gets a lot of value out of it. Because then once you find that, if there's dozens of people, hundreds of people that really get the value, then I think it's easier to find out what to do next. But if it's a little bit of everything for anyone, then it's harder to sort of galvanize that initial. So nice.
Yeah, definitely agree on that.
The vision of this kind of glue is a great one. So
yeah, I definitely agree that without like releasing it to the public and getting that feedback, it's very hard to see where you should be going. So
yeah. And do you have right now a release date or kind of a plan when that's going to happen?
I would say that maybe next week we're gonna be able to do that, because like this is like a real browser in terms of like it's not an iframe, it's like a real browser window there, and you have to like build all the infrastructure around it in terms of like how do you launch it, how do you switch between those views, etc. And it's taking a little more time than I would like prototype to take, but we'll get there. And
cool. All right. Well, thanks for spending the time and sharing everything going on with Nostr browser.
Oh yeah, that's been an hour and a half. Crazy. Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and hopefully we'll be able to let you play with
I'd love to.
This new product. Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks, Artur.
Yeah, thanks. Bye, David. Thank you.